Hello gorgeous ones, how are we? Look at me being on time. I'm giving myself a little pat on the back because, you know, it's almost unheard of. I've got a new ring light which you can actually see just in the back there. Hello Jane, how are you gorgeous? Gorgeous peeps, tonight I'm actually the queen of, well, you know this, I'm the queen of slapping something together. So tonight's another slap together meal because I realised in June, I've been home for about 5 days. And so I was away at the lipedema conference on the weekend, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. But I've come home tonight and we're going away again on Thursday. All being well, we're actually going on a family holiday with my 2 girls and my husband, and it's a holiday that has been postponed, 22 times during the pandemic. And I'm really excited. We're actually going, hello Veronica, we're going to Cocos Keeling Islands, which most people have never heard of. CKI, Cocos Keeling Island. It's up near Christmas Island. So miles away from cold old Melbourne. So it's a bit of a tropical island. It's, I think luxury and Cocos Keeling Islands are not even in the same book. I think rustic. We're gonna go rustic. And we're going because it's a dive site, and you know my family, they're mad on diving, and my youngest one's wanting to become, no, we're not taking the van, we're taking the van, it's an aquaplaner, but yes, it would take us 66 years to get there. So consequently I'm running my fridge down yet again. So I'm going to make tuna patties, and I'm going to make low carb tuna patties out of just whatever's in the fridge. So what I have done, as you know, I don't normally prep, but I thought you don't need to see me schlepping up and down the kitchen. So I did just microwave some frozen cauliflower. So frozen cauliflower is the potato of the tuna patty. So it's 500 grams. I didn't quite have 500 grams because somebody else had opened it and rifled through it. Taken a flourish. Who does that? So I don't know what there is, maybe 450, but it's basically 500 grams of cauliflower that's cooked within an inch of its life because you want it soft. You don't really want, big bits of cauliflower stalk. And I don't mind frozen cauliflower. I think it's pretty versatile. It's not very, when I'm cooking it, so yeah, rustic, it'll be fine for me. It'll be fine for me. Lee, thank you for thinking of me though. So when this one's microwaved, this thing, and when I'm microwaving stuff, I just put it in a microwave dish with the lid on, and I don't put any extra water in because it just makes the vegetables too watery. You drain out the water, and that actually drains out a whole lot of nutrients. So when you're microwaving frozen vegetables, don't put water in. I put the lid on firmly. I don't do that steamy function, that's useless. Just put the lid on and zap it, and I actually zapped these for 10 minutes. So there we go, 500 grams of mushed up cauliflower, microwave for 10 minutes, and look, how easy is that? Like, I'm hardly breaking a sweat out, mushing up my cauliflower. There's one little bit that was a reasonably large floret, but that's all right. Now, this is actually still warm because I just got it out of the microwave. Now, anyone who's strictly keto will think that I am, siding with the devil because I'm going to use peas. And I don't use peas a lot, but peas every now and then. And nobody, has obesity or develops their type 2 diabetes from eating peas occasionally. So I've just got, again, whatever the bag is, I reckon it's probably about 3/4 of a cup of peas. They're still frozen, and I'm just going to stir them on through. They'll just sort of cook while they're cooking. Cook while they're cooling, while the cauliflower's cooling. And that'll also cool down the cauliflower because I'm going to bind it all together with an egg. And you don't want the cauliflower too hot because it will, mush up the egg. Oh, I forgot to get the egg. So you will have to see me schlepping up to the kitchen, but that's okay. I drained off, how much prep? Yes, it's fun to mush it. So I did drain the tuna. So I'm doing tuna. This one's just some old John West. It is sustainable. Now, as lots of you know, we love fish. We love fish with its, I can't read all the comments, sorry darling. mainly because the phone's too far away, and I've really got to get a system going where I can see the comments, cook and chat, and not look like I'm Mrs. Squinty McQuinty. So tuna has buckets of nutrients in there. Lots of omega-3, lots of just really, really good anti-inflammatory properties. Now, people are always talking about, low inflammatory diets, of which low carb real food is. Low carb processed food or keto processed food is not low inflammatory. They're quite different, and this is why we at Real Life Medicine bang on all the time about real food. So look, how easy is that? Now, because I always like to have a bit of a balance, so I've got my protein, so that's my meat, tuna meat. So I've got my protein, I've got a couple of veg, which are the collie and the peas, and I'm just going to fling in a couple of these sun-dried tomatoes, mainly because I'm obsessed with them, and mainly because they need to be used up. And tomatoes, look, they have lots and lots. I'm not going to put the oil in. A little bit will go in, but that's not going to kill me. But I will not be pouring, like the good old days, all the oil in, because that's just a tiny bit of rubbish. So I'm just going to pour that in. I feel somebody is coming through my side door. Hello, my lovely daughter, just coming back from checking on her horses. So there's a lot of oil in there, and as I said, in the old days I would have thrown that in, but I'm not doing that. So now, the flavour, remember? You pick your protein, add your veggies, fat if it's lean. I could probably add a bit of fat to this, but I'm going to cook it in some butter, so that'll be my fat. And in fact, I'm going to serve it with a side of, cabbage, pan-fried in some butter. So that'll be my fats, because this actually doesn't have a lot of fat in it compared to, say, if I put bacon or pork belly or something like that in it. I actually wouldn't put bacon in this because it will actually, it's quite an overwhelming flavour. But I am going to put some fancy salt. So as you know, I've been on a salt mission. I'm no longer buying pink Himalaya salt because it's destructive to the environment. Tastes nice, but it's destructive. This is from ancient lakes in Australia, and their lakes have natural magnesium in it, and then they take their salt and they do something with their magnesium and they put it all together, and it's amazing. So I'm going to put in a bit of this, and as you know, I'm not stingy with salt because I don't get my salt from any other products. I don't eat processed food, which is where we would normally get our salt. And now some flavour, a bit of mingle. So I just fossicked around in my cupboard and found this one. This is one that's in all the supermarkets. It's called Use Me on Everything. It's also the all-purpose one. So it's just the blue one. And again, don't be stingy. It's got the onion and the garlic in it that is really going to give you lots of flavour. So unlike other spicy things that have got, rice flour and sugar and a whole heap of fillers, this is just spices. So yeah, don't be too stingy. Okay, so look at that. That looks all right just as it is. I'm just going to grab an egg to bind it together. I won't be a sec. So, do you know some good news? Today's the shortest day of the year. Yeah, I'm making tuna patties, darling. So today's the shortest day of the year. It's actually the winter solstice, sometime between today and tomorrow. So I kind of go, hooray. It can only go up from here. It's funny, the shortest day always sneaks up on me. And I don't know why that the shortest day doesn't correspond with the coldest day, because that to me would make sense. But instead, in Melbourne, our coldest days are often August, which is when I guess all our snow season starts. So basically, I've just put an egg in there to bind it together. You could whack some hemp seeds in if you wanted to. I'm just going to have a look at this and see. And in fact, what I'm going to do, and remember, half of this I just make up as I go. like this one. I've just made it up. I haven't sort of, you know, I know with lots of like posh recipes, there's triple checking and there's sending them out to people to check and all that stuff. But honestly, at the end of the day, I just think, well, I'm just making something and I'm going to whack it together and see how I go. So I'll just put up my new sleeves. What did Jodie call this morning? My statement sleeve. So how cute are these? This is actually a hoodie as opposed to an hoodie, and it's got these really fun little sleeves on it, but I don't want them covered in tuna juice. I think that's a little bit gross. And then what I'm going to do is once I've banged them together as a little patty, I'm going to sprinkle this stuff on, which you probably can't see. It's their mingle, whoops, we forgot the bagel. And it's basically lots of sesame seeds, a bit of onion and some garlic. And again, I just think that'll make a nice little flavour for it. So I'm going to pan fry mine in butter because I like butter, but you can pan fry it in whatever you like. Remembering, if you want to use olive oil, you can. There's no rule that you can't use olive oil, but I wouldn't use the I wouldn't use extra virgin olive oil. It does have it doesn't like being heated up, but the light olive oil, which is the second press, and is fine to be heated. Okay. Whew. Over here for some butter. I'll just put where do I put my lid? Here. My lid's a bit hot. I heated the pan up for a while because I didn't want to be like last week where I forgot to heat the pan and we're all standing around like bottles of milk. Right. Oh, you've put in a bit of almond meal to bind them together? Yeah, I could probably do that. I'm going to give it a whack and see how I go. Just put that down. Turn this pan down a bit. I'm just spreading that butter around. Now what I'm going to do is swap sides. Now, sadly you do have to get your hands a bit goopy. So you can either, if you don't like the texture of cold goop, which is fair enough, you could use gloves. But basically I've just got some goop going on there. I'm just going to make like that. And then I'll make it a bit flatter because I want it to cook quickly. So can you see that? Like, my lighting is just a bit off there. So, you know, that's the first one done. That wasn't very hard. If I'm lucky, well, I'd probably get 2 meals out of this, like between my hubby and I. Certainly enough for a family. But yeah, just give it a squeeze before you pop it onto the plate. You could definitely put some almond meal in if you want to. I just can't be fagged getting it out of the cupboard. But I think it'll hold together, especially when I coat it in my very fancy herby thing. What's my herby thing called? Mingle. Don't forget the bagel. Or whoops, we forgot the bagel. Some reference to bagels, which I must say I don't quite get. I know sometimes bagels have some sesame seeds on it, but I don't get the reference to that everything but the bagel seasoning when it's actually way more than just sesame seeds. All right. So, this is all a bit doopy. So I'm just going to do what I always tell my kids off for, which is dry my hands on a tea towel. Because then what happens is you dry your hands on the tea towel and then somebody dries the dishes on it. So I will be putting this stinky tea towel straight into the wash. So look at that. I've got 4 patties already and there's still plenty to go. I'm going to whack some mingle seasoning on this. And while this is cooking, we're going to chat. This one's trying to escape. You get a little bit more stuff on you. And I've got this beautiful butter in here that hasn't yet burnt. So it's on a low heat pan. Look, ta-da! So hopefully they'll stay together while they cook. And if they don't, I guess I'll be having tuna mush. It's not quite hot enough now. Good, that's better. You can hear it sizzling. Good. We do love to chat, we do, yes. Now, so this morning I was talking about women who wear black. And I know probably some of you saw that little chat. And it was, we wore black, I wore black, because it was slimming. That was the only reason. Because I thought wearing black clothes would make me look thinner. I mean, we were told that, but actually what it does is it just makes you invisible. and we don't want to be invisible because we're all magnificent. So one of the things, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit tonight about lipedema, and what I want to mention is that lipedema is it's a condition where it's actually a condition of the connective tissue between the fat cells. So it's not actually the fat cells, but the fat tissue. So we know that, so fancy name for fat is adipose tissue, and the fancy name for the fat cells are adipocytes. So fancy. And the fancy name for the space between each of these adipocytes is called the interstitial space. And they're all bound together with this sort of mesh-like, if you think it's called connective tissue. It's quite a good name because it connects everything together. So the problem that happens with women with lipedema, and it seems to be predominantly women, it's definitely a female thing. It's not a new condition. It's been around since 1940, just highly underdiagnosed, because we now know that 11% of women, like that's a massive number. If you think there's 27 million Australians, half of them are women, so that's 13 million. That means 1.3 million women. Now, of course, some of these women are babies still, but they're going to be affected by lipedema, and yet nobody's heard of it. It's bizarre. So type 2 diabetes, which everybody has heard of, affects about 4% of the population at the moment. So this is getting a bit juicy down the bottom. Not sure where the juices come from, because I'm not sure, because I'd certainly drained the tuna. That was dry like a chip. But anyway, that's all right. Again, there's a bit of egg in there, so that'll bind it together. Now, if I wasn't on camera, I'd probably go and actually wash my hands, but I'm just going to dry them on this Menkiel tea towel that I'll throw in the wash. So we've got 1.2-ish women affected by lipedema in Australia, and nobody's heard of it. A lot of people think it is fat legs. And I guess at its core, it kind of is, but it's not like normal fat distribution. So it doesn't respond to our normal measures because it's a completely different, because it's not actually the fat cells. It's not that somebody's just got too many fat cells and they've eaten too much and they've stored too much energy. It's not that. It is all about the tissue between the fat cells that is the problem. And so this tissue becomes thickened and it becomes this jelly-like, instead of being this beautiful flowy thing where nutrients flow in and out, it is the tissue between the cells becomes thickened and impermeable. And in fact, the fat can't get out. It's stuck in there. So, and then this whole heap of inflammatory stuff goes on and people get all sorts of connective tissue problems. So a lot of women will have they get these fibrotic scars as this connective tissue hardens, and it's painful. Ooh, these are falling apart a bit. I'm going to turn it up. Okay. So if it's fallen apart, I might need to amend the recipe and maybe take Karen, was it Karen who suggested the almond milk? Take her up on that offer of adding it together, because the one egg so far, well, maybe that was just the first one I was a bit rough with. I'll let them go on a bit longer. And I'll put these ones in. And what I'll do is I'll cook them, and as I put them in the pan, I will flatten them down and hold them back together. Dr. Lucy, what type of portable induction cooktop do you have there? So it's a very old cooktop. It's a chef's toolbox, which don't exist anymore. You might be able to buy one secondhand, but they are very good. I've had no problem with it. I know Chef's Toolbox went out of business, and there's some complaints about the actual cooking products, but I don't have a problem with them. But yeah, I'll look into it. In fact, I'd like to see, does anyone else have any recommendations for cooktops? For this bottom one is too mushy. There's no egg. Oh, there's the egg all down the bottom. That's interesting. All right, that's just going to leave. So now I'm going to swap plates because this is going to be the cooked plate. And this mush can go over here. The cats would love that. And I'll just get rid of this mushy bowl. So here's the thing. The treatment for lipedema, there's conservative and more invasive treatment. But the first thing that people need to do is clean up their nutrition. And it's really a low carb anti-inflammatory diet. Hooray! So we're wanting to reduce the entire body's inflammatory processes. And as you all know, the 2 or 3 biggest things that cause inflammation in our body are sugar. And the reason for that is the sugar, the glucose molecule, combines onto our proteins and becomes oxidized. So it basically cooks our cartilage, our joints, the connective tissue. So sugar is woeful. I've started really being a bit militant about sugar. I might need to squeeze the rest of some cauliflower. Yeah, I could try squeezing it out. That might be right, Sheena. I could have done it in a tea towel, and basically you mush up your cauliflower and you squeeze the juice out. That could easily be helpful. I might try that for next time. I'll add that into the recipe. But glucose, the seed oils, and then, so sugar, seed oils, and then other carbs. So glucose is just glucose. The same glucose molecule comes from sugar as it does from flour or potato or starch. It's all the same glucose, and it really does, in larger amounts, combine on our body proteins, and let's face it, the whole body is made up of a protein, and oxidize. And there is no point taking antioxidants if you're consuming truckloads of sugar. And a lot of people think when I'm talking about sugar that I'm talking about, spoonfuls of sugar in your tea. But you all know that we're talking about the sugars that are everywhere, hidden in sauces, hidden in pasta sauce. Flour is essentially chains of sugar. Yes, whole grains are essentially sugar. So oats are just chains of glucose. When quinoa, chains of glucose. So it's really important that if you're looking at reducing your inflammatory load, that actually you reduce as much sugar as possible. Okie dokie, I'm just turning these over. Okay. This might actually be a failure recipe. What can I do to resurrect? Okay. All right. How to salvage buggered up burgers. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pan fry it like a mincy thing. And then I'm going to throw in, oh my God, I love this. See, this is how to rescue a recipe. So I've gone, oh my God, I've gone to turn those burgers. They've all just completely fallen apart. So we now know the burgers are dud. Okay, so they taste good. They've got lots of nutrition in them. And how can I rescue them? Well, look at this. I've basically made like a tuna, essentially like a tuna mince. And because I was going to serve it with my cabbage, which has been sitting in my fridge for quite some time, I'm just going to go, right, what can I do? I'm going to grab this cabbage. I'm going to put this through. I'm going to chop off the end bit because the end bit is blur. You probably can't see, but it's all brown. So that's getting the chop. Okay, so I'll chop that this way. And I'll put the dud cabbage in the dud bowl. And then I'm just going to turn this down a bit. I feel like it's up a bit. I don't want to burn my beautiful tuna mince now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pan fry this. I'm going to cut the cabbage quite fine. I'm going to stir that through. And then I'm going to toss some sour cream through at the end. And that will give it a little bit of sauce, because clearly the tuna patties are not a tuna patty. So what will we call this, darlings? I'd love a name for this. It's a bit like Like I've made I've made it with curry powder before, minced curry powder and cabbage. So a bit of that. So we're going to invent a dish, and maybe we'll just call this the RLM special. How's that for a good dish? It's going to be delicious. So I'll give you the recipe for the RLM special. It's basically you mush up some cauliflower, fling in some peas, some sun-dried tomatoes, some herbs, some spices, a bit of salt, a tin of tuna with drained, and then some finely chopped cabbage. I'm probably going to put a little bit more butter in with that cabbage because it needs something. I'll just give my... Actually, I don't need to really give my knife a wipe because really what it's chopped cabbage. It's hardly a problem. So I've got a big knob of butter. I'm just going to fling that in and give that a bit of a stir around. I'm excited about this dish now. Let's get rid of that bit, the core. I probably should have chopped the core out of the cabbage when I was chopping it. Looks great. So I'm just going to show you. So all I've done here, I've got a pan full of, pseudo mince. And the best news is, I'll put the lid on, that beautiful cabbage will melt on down. And I've got the RLM special. Always cracks me up watching you cook. Yes, tuna a la king. I know. I just figure, well, look, if you give something a crack. Now, obviously, I don't know what went wrong there. Probably, as Sheena said, too much moisture in the cauliflower. But also, I really hate squeezing out cauliflower. It's a bit of work, and your tea towel goes all mucky. So back to lipedema, ladies, and the reason I am banging on about it is that if 11% of the population have it, you or your daughter, sister, auntie, mother might also have it. So the things to look for, we're looking for, so it's usually symmetrical, and it begins in puberty, often worsens in pregnancy, and sometimes menopause. And it's not just, so we talk about gynoid fat distribution, that's women's curves. It's not that. It is when you get curves that are just like big. So it's when women who you see with very heavy, maybe heavy legs and a heavy bottom, and what they'll describe is that their legs feel heavy. And sometimes they'll get heavy calves, maybe even like people describe them as tree trunk legs. So they're often, some people don't get the big, they just get the straight all the way down, and their legs feel heavy because the fluid between the fat cells is like gel. So it is heavy, and it will be painful, and sometimes they'll be extra sensitive. So if you're one of those people and someone grabs you by the leg and you're, like more than normal, then consider it. If you're somebody whose legs bruise, you think, oh my God, you look like you've had a few rounds with Muhammad, then consider it. And what you need to do is get tested or get assessed. And you can go to the Lipedema Australia website, and there's a big list of people that can assess you. So, look, you're unlikely to go, Nick said if your cat jumps on your lap, normally little putty jumps on, you go, oh, and for people with lipedema, little putty will jump on, they go, ah! So really, and even, kids sitting on their legs hurt, so a baby sitting on your knee. So the thing that we can do is that there is treatment available. There's lots of things in our life, there's no actual cure, but it's manageable. But what happens is that sometimes people don't want to know about it because it feels a bit hard, like what's the point? And in some women, it progresses. So if you go onto that lipedema website, you'll see stages. Now, not everybody goes to the fourth stage, and the fourth stage can be quite confronting because it is, and you've probably all seen them, you've got those ladies with, that perhaps aren't that big up top, but they have very, very big lumpy legs. And they're people that have probably had no treatment. Yes, your body and your baby's squirm, Nikki, so that's hard. So if you've had no treatment at all, you progress to stage 4. You're it's disabling. Your legs, that they can't just walk like they're supposed to. They have to walk around. The weight, the sheer weight of the legs is exhausting, and the pain. So you can go and see, there's lots of physios that are trained, not everybody though. So go to the Lipedema Australia website and look up for a therapist, because what we want to do is get that fluid moving. So we get the fluid moving early, and that helps stimulate, get rid of the inflammation, get rid of that gel. You can, manual therapists can break down any lumps that have formed, so fibrotic tissue. So it's really, really important. There is stuff that can be done. For some people, they do need liposuction. Now, this is not liposuction just to, trim a little bit off your hips so that you look like a wayfare. This is actually medically indicated liposuction because it relieves pain. It basically is like a debulking process. Debulks the diseased fat and connective tissue, but it's not curative. So for some people, they need several operations, and sadly, it's not covered at all by Medicare. And I suspect that is because they're worried about it rotting the system with people who just want cosmetic procedures. So this is not cosmetic. And you will see, I've got a couple of beautiful patients who have had it, and they've also had to have large portions of skin removed, and there's a giant scar. It's not done for cosmesis, it's done for function. So really, really important, because people feel, there's so much friggin' shame that goes on with our bodies, and as you all know, I've had a gut full of it, but I understand it. So you've got shame at your diagnosis, then you've got this sort of thing about, I've had liposuction, you don't want to say it, but really, we've just, if you need it, you need it, but it is expensive. So, people have to plan for it and budget for it. But, and here's where we come in. And this is what was so exciting. Yes, the people with lipedema have been bullied their whole lives. And I have had somebody who has come and who has said to me that somebody literally said to her, pretty face, shame about the legs. And it is bonkers. It just drives me nuts. But what I think that we can do is, and there's not a lot of surgeons. Again, you have to pick your surgeon, because in amongst all of this, there's little lymphatic tissue. So we all know about lymph. Well, we kind of know about lymph. So you get lymphatic tissue, and it gets squashed by this thickened gel matrix that forms. And so then people end up with lymphedema as well. So you get lipolymphedema. Again, another excruciating, painful condition. So you need a surgeon that is very au fait with the lymphatic system, and not just some cowboy who's waving around a liposuction wand and just kind of hacking. You need someone who's really skilled. So as you can see, I'm banging on a bit because I'm waiting for my new dish to my RLM special. Oh, it's looking good. Does look good, actually. And if you don't like tuna, you could do this with chicken. So, I don't know if I can show you. I'm going to give it a couple more minutes. The cabbage is softened, but I just want it to caramelise a little bit. So, I am going to be talking a little bit more about lipedema, probably for the rest of my life, actually, because I even now know that I've seen people in my clinic, and I missed the diagnosis. I didn't see it. I saw, they came in to help with managing their obesity, and I know obesity is an awful word, and you can get them both combined, but you can certainly get lipedema with no obesity. So the person has no excess body fat stores except in this diseased tissue, because the fat accumulates there and it can't get back out. So I think that it's two things need to happen. We need to have more awareness so that people can get treated. We need to be talking about it as just another condition. Okay, because women, we're bloody more than our legs. Okay, we're more than, what our bottoms look like. But I get that it's hard. It is hard, and we do feel, judged by it. And that's where shame comes from. It's the shame comes from judgment of others and fear of judgment. And, as you know, it's bullshit. I am so angry with people that judge, and they've never walked a mile in anyone's lipedema or non-lipedema shoes. It's just not acceptable in any front. And I know that, again, there are people in the low-carb world who do this. They say the person should just eat good food, but they don't know that person's history. And unless you know the person's history, you don't know anything about what's happening with them. You don't know anything. And that's what I always come back to. When you catch yourself doing it, and we all do, you'll catch yourself and you'll go, you know what? I don't know anything about that person. Who am I to judge? Who am I to do that? And that, I find that really good. Who am I? Just another person, dealing with my own struggles, my own issues, as clearly are they. And that's all it is. All right, beautifuls. I've been banging on for quite a while. I will show you a picture of my creation, my RLM surprise. And as I said, as you know, it often #ugly food may not look pretty. I'll try and put it on a nice plate, take a nice photo, but I know it's going to be bloody delicious. It's going to be anti-inflammatory, and it's going to be good for us. So have a wonderful, wonderful night, darlings, and I'll see you soon. Bye, sweets.